Hey, Being at Work listeners, welcome back to another episode. Today, we are digging into a topic that can be both empowering and uncomfortable. We're talking about boundaries and why they are absolutely essential for leaders. Our guest today, Kathy Love, is a self-care coach who helps leaders untangle the pressure to do it all and lead in a way that's sustainable, clear, and honest. Kathy brings a wise, grounded presence to whatever conversation she's a part of, and her personal story deeply shapes the work that she does. She knows firsthand what it feels like to give too much, and she's made it her mission to help others lead with greater intention and self-respect and care. So many leaders are focused on pouring into their teams that they forget to pour into themselves. So Kathy challenges the subtle codependent habits that sneak into leadership, like taking things personally when someone leaves the team or feeling like you can't say no to your boss. So she's going to walk us through the real life impact of those patterns and how setting boundaries around time, energy, and money can bring us back to clarity and confidence. So Kathy Love, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Andrea. I can't wait for this conversation. This is what I love to talk about.
I know you do. And we were on a call recently and my mind was blown. You helped me think about boundaries in a very different way. You also challenged the way I thought about the word codependence. Mm-hmm. So I'm grateful to bring your wisdom and insight to this community. So tell us about the journey, because I know that your personal story is such an important part of the work that you do. So what is it that led to the place you are today?
About 12 years ago, I went through a personal devastation. Honestly, that's not an overstatement. That led me to the work that I do now and applying it toward leadership. But I learned it in my family first, in my relationships first. I was very happily living the life of stay-at-home mom, working with my husband at the time. I was involved in all of the school groups and I was involved with my kids and the community. We had a nonprofit. I was doing it all and I was loving it. But behind the scenes, things were slipping away from me and falling apart in ways that I could have never imagined. Until one day, the FBI came to our house and left their business card in our front door. So we came home to find that, and our life was never the same after. In the process of the next few years, we lost everything financially, from our home and our cars to all of our retirement savings, everything. We ended up moving out of state, so we also lost community, friendships, support that I had built for our 3 kids at the time. And they were 8, 11, and 12 at the time. So young still and busy in sports and activities and the time when you lean on those moms and other parents around you. So everything fell apart and I had plenty of people to blame. Nobody did question me when I chose to blame other people. But over the course of my healing, I realized that I had a lot more responsibility in the situation that I was living in than I had ever realized before. And the primary piece of that was missing was boundaries. I didn't know what they were. It wasn't a conversation. It was never suggested that I have better boundaries. It just never came up. So looking back, now I can see where I took on too much, where I stayed in the relationship that wasn't healthy for me because of my fears of doing it by myself or fears of my identity changing, really. I was very happy being the mom, the PTO, mom. I worked with my ex-husband. I was happy with all of those things and I didn't want it to change. But in the end, it all disappeared out of my control. And that's when I realized that I had control of how I was going to rebuild. And the rebuild came with a lot of boundaries.
How long was that process of
Years.
recognizing that? Years?
It was years because for the first 5 years after everything happened, I was really in a mode of trying to get back to where I was. So I was in unhealthy relationships under the pretense that I was trying to find someone to replace, for but lack of a better word, my husband and have our family be complete again. I was chasing money because I was financially responsible for the kids. So I was at networking events and I was out of the house and I was putting so much time into work. I was drinking too much at the time. What I realized later was that I was doing anything I could to just not be with my own thoughts. It was so painful and terrifying, the fear of not being able to provide, not being able to take care of my kids and provide for my kids and have experiences like we had been used to or that I wanted for them. And so the first 5 years was me really holding on. The second 5 years has been the healing. And that's when the real realizations of what I needed to do to be healthy again. And that was where I talked about the definition of what I describe as codependency as a disconnection from ourself. I realized after that 5 year mark that everything I was doing was outside of myself. It was in looking for validation from the next partner or job or even my kids' successes. It was all about me getting my identity and my worthiness fulfilled from the outside. And it was that disconnection from myself that kept me in the unhealthy. So to connect with myself, I was starting from zero. I had no idea how to do that. I literally Googled, how do you self-care? I really didn't know how to do it. And it ended up and I will say forcing me because it's not what I wanted to do. I did not want to spend time with myself. I did not want to do the work that it took to figure out what made me happy, what I needed, and what was best for me, and then do those things. Because a lot of times doing those things was uncomfortable. It might mean leaving a job with the fear of not being able to provide for my family. It might be leaving a relationship. It could be ending a friendship with someone that I relied on for some reason. But it ended up coming to the point where I had to ask myself, what was it that I really wanted my life to look like? And how was I getting myself there?
Yeah. And that is what it's going to take to get out of those old patterns, isn't it? I mean, oh God, this just so resonates. And the way in which you talk about it, Kathy, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if it's just where I am in my maturity or the work I've done. I think the leaders that I work with every single day are all on this journey. But the way in which you connect the dots creates so much clarity for me. You talked about, I was in a mode that first 5 years after this happened, that you were in a mode of trying to get back to where I was. That is like those patterns that we have all adopted to protect ourselves. And there is, on such a deep level, so much fear because we've held on to those things, and there's a comfort in them because they are protection measures. Right. So until we do the work of answering that question, like, what is it that I really want? And put our focus and energy there and build habits that support that life, like we're on this hamster wheel.
And it looks I was going to say it looks so far away. And I was in a business networking group at one point, and there was a life coach there. And my husband had just gone to prison, and I was really at my lowest point. And he said, I want to work with you. Basically, I see something in you and I want to invest in you. And so just give me a chance. Let me work with you. So my first assignment was to write out my dream life. And it was in detail. It was 6 pages long of what I wanted my body to look like, my relationship with my ex, my relationship with my kids, a future partner, my career, my finances, everything. And after I finished that, I got in bed and didn't get out for 3 days.
It was exhausting.
I was so depressed, Andrea. I was
Oh, wow.
so devastated that my dream life was as far away from my reality as it could have been. And so I kept avoiding him. So we would go to these weekly meetings. And after 6 weeks, he said, "You're avoiding me. I can tell you're avoiding me." And I was, because it was so hard to imagine that I could ever get there. And that was the first time I heard the phrase of, if you can't believe in yourself, can you at least believe in my belief in you?
Yeah.
And I did. I knew that he could see something, that little bit of light that I held, but
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine how it was going to happen. And that's when I learned you don't have to know the how, you just have to know the what you really want. And then it's the small decisions. That's the whole idea behind vision boards, which I'm a big believer in vision boards, or vision, the mind movies. I make these video vision boards and I love them. They're not magical, although they seem it, but they really are about getting you to get really clear on what you want. And when those images are in your mind as your goal for what you'd like, and a lot of times people think a vision board is all just material, but it's not. I would have images of me sitting in peace and calm, and it was more about feelings and community and bringing the pieces that were important to me into my life. And when we focus on those things, it just guides us so that each step we take, each decision we make, each person we connect with, every job we take is moving us toward that goal.
Yeah. And you point out something important, that you realize or had to learn through that process that you didn't have to know how to get there, because that's what it is that paralyzes us in that moment. I mean, that's why you didn't get out of bed for 3 days, because it felt so different than reality. So how in the world am I going to do this? I think that's what it is that keeps us. So I think there's something in that for leaders. There's got to be this knowing that future vision that I have, just in having it, that makes it possible.
Yes. If you can see another leader have what you want, it shows you it's possible.
It shows you it's possible. And what
Right.
you want wants you to. But how do you develop that? I mean, I like you am a visionary leader who just knows that. So I spend a lot of time thinking about the future, but leaders so struggle in that. How did you get that understanding that I don't have to know how?
Practice. Honestly, it's practice. That's why they call, that's part of doing the work. It's practicing. That's really hard to do.
Mm-hmm.
It's really hard to believe in something that you cannot see.
Mm-hmm.
But you believe that, when you turn the light switch on, that the lights are going to turn on. And so it's just, I surrounded myself with the messaging and the people who are going to reinforce that messaging in my life. I surrounded myself with people who believed in possibility, who believed in me, and who would support me in that way. Because there were people who didn't see my vision working out the way I did.
Yes. And you didn't listen to them.
No.
You could have.
I could have, and that was one of the worst points in that whole stretch, was making a huge decision that I wanted to make a decision, but I was so afraid to make it. And I was being told by so many people that it wasn't a great idea. the pressure was tremendous. And I was really starting to suffer. I was just crying all the time. I was emotionally just really struggling.
Yeah.
And luckily, I had someone in my life who said, "What do you really want?" And I said, "This is what I want. This is why. This is what I see." And as soon as I committed to that, everything changed. And that's when I met Scott McGregor, which led me to the Outlier Project and how we met. But I would have never, you know, I talked to Scott because he was a recruiter, so I called him to get a job. He didn't have a job
Hmm.
that I was looking for, but he said, "Let's just have a conversation." And by the end of the conversation, he hired me. And that changed the whole, I could
Everything.
never have known how that was going to play out.
Yeah.
I just knew in what I wanted to do, I had to take some steps forward. And that phone call was one.
And you see now how all of the work that you had been doing led you to that.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's just in moving toward it. And what happens is sometimes when we're moving toward what we really want, we have to leave behind the things we don't want. And that can mean changing companies. That can mean letting go of people, of friends, but we know that where we're going is going to be filled with the feelings, the day-to-day, the life that we actually crave.
Yes, stepping away from what we have had. I mean, that was like you said, I was in a mode of trying to get back to where I was. There's something that hooks us. There's comfort in that old pattern, isn't there?
Well, I thought that's who I was.
I thought that's who I was.
I was married. I was I had a great job. All of a sudden, I was unemployed, divorced, a single mom, all of the things I never imagined I would be, and I didn't want to be.
And I didn't want to be. So this all flowed out of your your updated definition of codependence, just a disconnect from ourselves. It's such a
Right.
simple way to think about it. And before I heard you say that a few weeks ago, I mean, I would have, I'm certainly not someone who's codependent. I am a very independent person, but I can be both independent and disconnected from myself. There are lots of areas of my life where my being okay is dependent upon what somebody else thinks of me. So since I heard you speak a few weeks ago, I've really been processing and thinking about that. And it's also just, there's a lot of grace in that definition. Isn't that just being human that happens?
It is. And that's why most of us have some codependent thoughts, beliefs, and behaviors. There is nothing wrong with those. It's just when we can look and see how they're driving our decisions, how they can keep us stuck, how they can keep us in the places that aren't healthy for us, that's when it's an issue. And we talked about this too, is sometimes being highly super independent is a sign of codependency, because codependency comes with fear, it comes with a lack of trust. And so sometimes that trust, it sounds like and it looks like we don't trust other people, but in reality, we're not trusting ourselves to make the decisions or to just to do the things that we need to do. So yes, the independence thing is something I hear all the time. As soon as I say, "Oh, I work with people in codependency," they're like, "Oh, I'm not codependent. I'm so independent." But it's really that disconnection, and that's where leaders who are facing burnout or who have teams that are facing burnout, where the boundaries can come in
Yes.
and really change the dynamic for the team and for themselves personally. Because we all know leaders have who give all of their time and energy to their team, and they come home from work and they're trashed, they're exhausted, they're looking, they're not going to the gym because they're so tired, and it's this vicious cycle.
Yeah.
Instead of taking care of themselves first so that they can better support their team.
Yes. So recognizing that all leaders naturally are going to have codependent thoughts and behaviors.
Absolutely. Our job is to take care of others. to a degree.
So, what does it look like to set healthy boundaries? Let's just use that example. I'm a leader who, I have a sales team, or if I'm working with a group of healthcare leaders and I'm so concerned about them. And so I'm spending all of my time like making sure they're okay. I want them to be okay. And that's a good thing, but I'm compromising myself in the process.
Right, unless you're losing yourself and your
Hmm.
health and your mental health in the process. So the first thing is we always come back to basics. Are you eating healthy foods? Not perfectly, but are you eating healthy foods, or are you running for, junk food because you're so stressed out or you don't have time to prep your food, or like we just look at things and find out what are the real answers. So the basics. Are you eating healthy foods? Are you drinking water during the day? Or are you running around like a nut and you never remember to drink your water? And every day you're like, oh, tomorrow I'll drink my water. These are everyday choices. The other thing is, are you moving? Are you getting 10 minutes outside? Are you getting a short walk in? Are you breathing? I talk a lot about breathing because we can make huge changes with just our breath. And we don't have to leave the office for that.
Hmm.
We don't have to get up early to do that. We can do it all through the day so that at the end of the day, we're not shot. So that on the weekend, we can actually do the things we want to do instead of recover from the week and then just push ourselves through the next week.
What about those leaders who are like back to back meetings? I mean, breathing is something you can be intentional about on the way to meet,
Yeah.
even sitting in a meeting. But what about those environments where it is just nonstop?
Okay, so one practical thing would be to build buffers in. So no more 60-minute or 30-minute meetings. Now they're 20 or 50 so that we get a 10-minute break in between meetings so that we can stand up and move around, move our body so we can go get a drink, go to the bathroom, whatever it is we need to do. But beyond the practical, it's having the mindset that we're worth protecting, that our time and our energy, our body, our health, our mental health are worth protecting. That's when we can set a boundary.
Yeah.
When we believe that maintaining ourselves is more important than all of the other things that we have to do. It doesn't mean we don't think those things are important. It just means that we know we're no good to anyone if we collapse at the end of the day. If we burn out in 3 months, we're not helping anybody.
Well, and isn't there something magical that happens when I am taking care of myself? It is it is momentum and energy so that I can take care of others.
Exactly. And then you give your team permission to take care of themselves so that they're not calling you, an hour before they're supposed to be at work. They're actually at the gym getting a workout in
Mhm.
so that they show up energized and feeling great and clear headed and able to work through the day.
Yeah, it's this ripple effect of
We
wellness.
set the tone as leaders. We absolutely set the tone. And I think when I talked to your group a couple weeks ago, it was using the time boundary with phone calls. And so there are steps in setting a boundary. The first one is identifying where it needs to be, because if boundaries are new to us, we don't even know what that means or where they go, or so the key phrases to listen for in your life are, I can't do this anymore. I'm so fed up with, they're taking advantage of. Basically, you just can't do it anymore. So those are signs that even if it's that they're taking advantage of me, it sounds like it's them, but it's really our responsibility to protect ourselves. So that's still a place for a boundary. So we find out where we need it, we set it without any type of explanation or apology. And the example I used in that group
Mhm.
was, I'm not going to take calls after 7 p.m. anymore. That's very simple. It's easy to understand. I don't have to tell you that it's because I want to give my daughter a bath and then make dinner. And I don't have to tell you anything except for, right, I'm not going to answer the phone after 7 o'clock. So then the next step is to enforce it. and the steps get harder and harder. So when the phone rings at 5 after 7, it's our job not to answer the phone. And they may call at 7:30 and 8 o'clock, and they might call 10 times that night. But you're teaching them whether or not you'll answer the phone. And if they call at 10 p.m. after the kids are asleep and you answer, now they know that you're still going to answer the phone. So enforcing the boundary is our job, not theirs, and really, really important.
Well, and that's the value of the boundary. Not even as much setting it. It is you trusting yourself, honoring yourself enough that when the boundary is crossed, for you not to engage.
Yes. And that is exactly what you need to bring into the next step, which is ignoring the backlash. So the next day when someone says, I called you at 7:15 and you didn't answer, you're lazy, you're selfish, you don't care about this team, you all these things. When you can stand in your own self and know the reason that you set the boundaries were healthy for you, you know that you're a good person, you know that you're a good worker, you know everything about yourself so strongly that they can say whatever they want and it won't rattle you. But that's really, if you start at the end, that's why we don't set the boundaries, because we don't want people to think badly of us. We don't want to let people down.
Well, and the thing I hear is, oh, but it's such an important relationship for me. Of course, I don't want to let them down. I love them. So I need to compromise. I need to. So what about, like, what if it was your boss?
Right. But in exchange, if you're not letting them down, you're letting yourself down. So we have to remember that, and we have to protect ourselves as easily as we would protect them or someone we love. And I always use a child as an example because we can all relate to protecting a child for no reason other than that's just what you do. They don't have to prove themselves or do anything else. And we get to a point in our healing where we can do that for ourselves. If it's our boss, we have to. So the people who push back on our boundaries the most show that they're unhealthy. So the response you get to your boundary shows you the level of healthiness in that person.
Yeah.
So if you have a boss where you say, I'm not taking calls after 7, and your boss calls you every night after 7, that might be a sign that this isn't a healthy work environment for you. This is where it gets hard. This is why people don't set boundaries, because they don't want to actually have the facts to say, I might have to leave, because now what?
Yeah.
It doesn't always come to that. It could be a conversation. It could be a reminder. Hey, I did say this, but you watch people's patterns and behaviors over time and responses to your boundaries, and you get a lot of information.
Damn.
And I will say, if you struggle with boundaries in your personal relationships, it's very likely that you are suffering or struggling with them at work and you just may not know it, or vice versa.
Yeah. Wherever you go, there you are.
Right.
The response you get is aligned with the health of your relationship.
Absolutely.
That's really good. So the 3 steps. So name what you want or set the boundary, enforce the boundary, and then ignore the backlash.
Right.
You make it sound so easy.
Right. Right. Self-care is simple, but not easy.
Well, and it is so connected back to knowing what it is I want. Because in order to set a boundary, like, I have to think about what I need and what's important to me and the impact that this behavior is having on me.
Exactly.
So even in just naming what it is I want, I mean, what a courageous step that is, and how hard that is. Because so much of the time we're so focused on what does everybody else want to need.
Right.
So so setting a boundary is self-care.
It is the greatest expression of self-care, to protect yourself like someone you love.
To protect yourself like someone you love. I think so much of the challenge in setting boundaries for me has been like wanting people to like me. And one of the things over the last few years I have learned is that I'm not even giving them a chance to like me. It's like the more I establish what I want and need, the more of myself is really coming into the relationship. So relationships are getting stronger as a result of me honoring what I want and need. It's like the partnership that I'm in now is, gosh, leaps and bounds different than any partnership I've ever been. I wonder sometimes, like, about past relationships, like, gosh, if I'd have shown up as the version as of me that I am showing up as today, it would have looked completely different. I mean, there's a lot of grace in that because I didn't know what I didn't know, right? And I had to go through that to get to where I am. But
We're not often taught boundaries in our culture. We're not culturally, women are not culturally, moms are not culturally, leaders are not. It's always take care of everyone else first. And there are professions like nursing and teaching, and there, that are all about taking care of other people first. So we're taught the exact opposite. It's no wonder.
we're taught the exact opposite. It is no wonder. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your story and how it all connects. I mean, you talked earlier about doing the work, and it's work you've been doing for a long time, for a lifetime. And I just appreciate you being willing to show up with so much vulnerability and heart and putting it all out there so that we can learn through your story.
Thank you. It is when I start working with someone in the beginning, they're obviously coming in because they're really uncomfortable. And as soon as they kind of tell me why, I get this big smile on my face. Like, this is so exciting to me because we
Yeah.
can make such big changes with these simple things to learn. And so it gets to be fun. It actually gets to be fun. So I am grateful to be in this process and
Yeah.
able to learn and able to see the differences and yeah, and have these conversations. I just love it.
Well, and you're living your dream life because you had the courage to claim it and name it.
Andrea, if I ever showed you that 6-page list, you would absolutely, it would blow your mind to see
Ah.
how many of those things are true now.
Yeah. So are you then always evolving that? Like, yeah, what's that process for you?
Yeah, like I said in the beginning, it was more about emotional stability. My images and the words that were on there were more emotional, and then it became things, and now it's more career. I
Yeah.
have a picture of me speaking in front of large groups or putting an addition on my house, things like that.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're material, sometimes they're still just, I want, me surrounded by the woods and just this
Mm.
peaceful, stable place that I always craved that I got myself to. So
Yeah.
they definitely change. I do them every year and I love them. I was just listening. So I now I listen to them because I have a video. I'll make one for you.
I wish you would.
They're vision videos. And so they come with music and they're just, I don't know, they get you in that space where you can believe and see yourself in the images.
They get you in that space. Yeah. Well, and that's how our brains process information too, is visually. So the more you can surround yourself with those images, the more you're setting yourself up. Isn't that self-care?
Absolutely. Believing, having that hope and possibility is self-care.
Yeah.
And trusting. I mean, we could honestly, we could just go on and on and on. There are so many things that are day-to-day emotions or pieces of self-care that we just don't think are in that are that important, right?
Right. Right. Yeah. Well, this is a call to pay attention to those things
Yeah.
and how all of those things make us feel. Yeah. Thank you, Kathy Love.
Yeah, thank you.
If our listeners want to connect with or find you, what's the best way to do that?
My website is my self-care shit, that is self-care for me because at first I was afraid to use that and I had a coach who was like, but this is you, use it. And I was so worried about it. And now when I tell people it's my self-care shit, they smile and we laugh. And so that is an example of self-care. But Yeah, my website has my TEDx on it and the books and all the
I
things.
love
So,
it.
yeah.
My self-care shit. Best
Yes.
website name ever. And you have to tell our listeners how you came to be Kathy Love. This is one of my all-time favorite stories.
A couple of years ago, my now ex-husband told me that I was disparaging his last name by coaching and that I was keeping this story about our family going, and he was not happy about that. And he told me that I was harming our children, which was devastating to me. I was absolutely on my knees, and
Of course.
I thought about it for a minute and I tried to weigh in on whether I thought he was right or wrong or how I felt about that. And all of a sudden I said, am I allowed to say the F word?
I wish you would.
I said, fuck you. I'll give you your name back and I'll choose love. Because I've always had this mantra, I am love, I am peace, I am gratitude. And it just rolled off my tongue. And then I started telling people as a joke, I'm just going to choose love. And then it kind of stuck. And not too long after, I Googled it. And it turns out that love is the French word for female wolf, known for her bravery and ferocity. And my maiden name was Capilupo, head of the wolf.
Oh my God.
So it just happened to work out that way.
That's so perfect.
Yeah.
Life clearly telling you you are Kathy Love.
Yeah. And then coaching self-love. So yeah, it all worked out.
It did. It's good. I'm so glad you're Kathy Love. You wear it well.
Thank you.
Thank you, my friend. I appreciate you.
Thanks for having the conversations.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode. Let's connect to go a bit deeper. How can I help you? Looking for an executive coach, a facilitator for a team or leader engagement, or a high energy, heartfelt speaker? Learn more and connect with me through our website at abundantempowerment.com. I look forward to co-creating something magical with you.